Aloha and welcome to Norma's podcast, The Horizon Story. Norma, I wanted to come and do cleanup on the last episode of the season and
Thank you.
ask a few of the questions that have come up by some of the production crew, some of the folks that have had questions in other iterations in other places, as well as some of my own. So thank you for having me and letting me do the intro. It's very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So by the way, I guess we should remind people they can send in questions.
You can send in questions, hello@thehorizonstory.com.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Have you been getting a few?
There have been a few questions that have come in.
Okay.
And I wanted to just start with where you left off on the last episode, actually, and you were talking about leaps. And I thought there were just like some really significant stories that came in that you and Ariel were talking about. But I wanted to just like dive a little deeper into one of those instances that you kind of just glanced by and kept going. And it is around this idea that you had said, oh, well, the podcast is a leap.
Yes.
And it is.
Yes.
And the books were, I think, a leap as well. It took a little bit of time for Taj to convince you that the books...
18 months.
Yeah, longer than that, actually. You're being kind. Or maybe he was being kind. But it took some time to I think, for the people who have been on this journey with you to convince you that, writing the books were important. And then the books, through a number of kind of growth spurts in audience, really got us to this place where we would take on this podcast. And I'm curious to ask the question, why would you ultimately agree to the books? And then to follow, why would you agree to do this podcast? Because this is probably more makeup than you've worn in a very long time. Certainly myself as well. But also it's like, if for an introvert, this is like a huge leap, being in this setting, all these cameras in this way. And yet it's clearly needed. I mean, we've gotten a great response from the viewers. We've had a lot of people share comments, and people are consuming the content. So therefore it's needed. But for you, why would you step out for these two products in this way at this time?
Well, so, first, to make sure we get our facts correct, this is the most makeup I have ever worn.
Right.
Okay, right. So, let's just, like,
Got
not in a long time. It's like have ever worn.
Except for those of you who don't know, Norma used to perm her hair back when she was in Governor Wahe's office. I have photographic evidence of this.
I thought you signed an NDA.
I did. I didn't show the picture. The picture without the NDA would be in the screen right here, right now. But
okay, all right.
To preserve our friendship and the NDA.
Okay, all right. The friendship more than anything else.
Yes.
Yeah. So, it's like, so this is a very public thing, right?
Yeah.
Versus, and I thought that my public time had come to a good close, and that I was moving on to other things. Okay.
Back in the day of SD TV, where you didn't actually need that much makeup.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
But which is to say that I thought long and hard about taking the leap to to run for office, for example. Okay. And at the point I ran for office, I moved from one phase and one persona into another persona, which didn't mean I became a different person. It meant that there were aspects of who I was that needed to actually come out more and stay out, rather than come and go. And that happened when I made the decision to run for office. Like writing the book, it took me a long time. But once I did it, there was no turning back.
The book came quickly after you decided.
After I decided, yeah. So it took me a long time to decide. And then the book came quickly, yeah. And part of that was I thought that the mission that I had the purpose that I had, and the part of the purpose that was shared with me by my teacher, okay, was being usefully carried out. And the notion that it would have to be done in a way that would mean there would be a permanent record. A book is a permanent record.
It is.
A podcast is apparently more permanent than a book.
Once it hits the digital space, it can never be erased.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And, and so the notion that it would be done in that way, that never entered my mind. Okay. So part of this was understanding the critical nature of the moment, which meant that whatever it is that I was doing was insufficient because it would take too long, and it would only impact like a group of people, and that group of people was very much finite. In other words, it couldn't get expanded by leaps and bounds in the method of the oral tradition.
Sure.
Right? You can't do that.
Sure.
Since I'm not Wei Neng, the sixth patriarch, who would give remarks from the mountainside and have 10,000 people sit in front of me. Okay, then I'm not that kind of teacher. So therefore, the numbers of people in front of me would always be limited. The question is, in this day and age, can wisdom be passed along fast enough, but with integrity?
Yeah.
Because it's not just about like getting all kinds of stuff out there and multiplying it over and over and over again, right? Okay. And taking the risk that can be done is the leap that I had to make.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for saying that. I think you're talking about courage in previous episodes as well, and I think there's like a lot of courage baked into putting on all this makeup and coming in front of the crew here and recording these, and that while the book and the podcast are somewhat permanent, they're also there's this conversation about where and when they're useful, right?
Yes.
And so to start off, like there's a usefulness right now, today when these episodes hit the street and there's as much turmoil and as much collapse as we see,
Yeah, so there's the irony, right, of that if the times were not so dire, maybe 10 people would come to this podcast and maybe 20 people would read the book, right?
Okay.
Right, which is to say that these are things that only a few geeks and nerds may have an interest in, except the time is so dire. And so, it's like, of a sudden, all of this is happening.
There's this other piece, though, that I think is really important to note with respect to like how the content has deployed. And that is that like, the first book, When Nothing Works, it wasn't just written, but it was written with a particular future tense in mind. Mm-hmm. And when it landed, it just so happens on election day of 2024, it landed with kind of such an important resonance because of what fused that lit into where we are now. And so books are hard to time. Podcasts, like if we had to, we could set up a podcast tomorrow and air it the next day. But books are several months out. And can you talk a little bit about why you understood that the book that you were writing needed to land in this future tense in the way that it did to then allow for a robust discussion to take place in the time space of January of 25 and when it launched right at the election. Yeah. So
right before we came on, right, you paid attention to a couple of things on set, and then you turned my mic because you saw that if you turned it right, and then the comment that you made was see all the things. It's kind of maddening at some point, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it, similarly, right, the practice way that I have, and also the way that I've lived my life, okay, is that there are many things that I am seeing unfolding, okay, and I'm seeing them unfold apparently before other people see them, but like you noticing things on the set, right? To me, it's like the question I always have is, how come other people can't see it? In other words, all we're doing is paying attention, right? And we're focusing and we're observing it, and we're not caught up in, other things, right? And so because of that, we're in an observant stance. You see things, I see things, right? And other people would have similar skill and experience doing that in their areas of profession, right?
Sure.
Right? Like if a quarterback could not see things on the field, they're not worth much. Right? Okay.
And how they're going to unfold.
How they're going to unfold, right? Which is like, you can see that there's going to be an opening. So even though the play was to throw left, that's closing up, right? And so you have to actually go to your secondary, right? On the right field, right? Okay, please, somebody tell Nan.
I was just going to say, like, Nan Stoops should know that, the sports metaphor here is,
I use it correctly, right?
Yeah,
I use it correctly.
Did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's that. So it's not a magic thing. In other words, it's just through experience and practice that I see these things opening up, and then the question becomes, to whom would that information be useful to,
right? And
towards what end, right? Yeah. Towards what end? And so, in a time in which we actually need many people to move differently, then it is useful to have this information shared, and not only information, but to give people a few tools and ways and practices and habits that they could interrupt, so they could also see these things.
Right.
So,
I'm curious. I think you gave like a maybe more of a simplistic answer in terms of like, oh yeah, of course. Other people could too, but really you've been honing this craft to be able to see things the way that you do for a long time.
Just like a quarterback, right?
With the teachers you've had. How does it feel for you to be in this time space now, being able to see maybe a little further around the corner than others?
So I would say, if I didn't have all the years of practice of being steady in times of turmoil, okay, all right, that I would be a wreck right now. I would say, in terms of what I see, I would be a wreck. Okay, which just speaks to the usefulness and the power of having deep practices that would allow a person to remain grounded when things are up in the air.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, this seems like a important place to maybe take a break and then come right back to a couple of questions around why you would be a wreck right now, as well as maybe a couple other things about practice.
Okay, we'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll be right back. Welcome back to Norma's podcast, The Horizon Story. Norma, we just left off on this idea of practice really being able to help to buoy you in times that are hard. Mm-hmm. And we've spent enough time together for me to acknowledge that you have like a tremendous practice day in and day out, whether you're on the road. Mm-hmm. I think one time you told me that you could even go into Zazen on an airplane.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for all of your practice and for what you have been able to imbue to us in terms of the little bit of practice that we keep up with you. But there was actually a question that came in around practice and balance in this time. And so I wanted to read you the question, and then maybe we can talk about that a little bit. Okay. It goes like this. How do we hold the weight of this moment without collapsing under the pressure to fix everything? What does it look like to find balance, doing enough to play your part without striving so hard that it becomes its own kind of burden?
Okay. So it's like the, so the idea of Kuleana, right? Okay. The Kuleana is everybody has to do their part, and that is key. In other words, you're doing your part along with everybody else in relationship to everybody else.
Sure.
Okay. So, a thing that is useful to deconstruct is when we ask a question about how not to fall under the burden of something, that there's actually a bit of ego in that question, as if we would be the one who could hold the whole burden of it. And, so a way not to hold that burden is understand that you can only do your part.
You can only do your part.
You can only do your part. And that's that. And that's it, right? And on some days, your part may look very big, both to you and other people. And some days it will be small. You think of it as small, but nonetheless significant, right? A lot of the things that I've done are not public, right? They're not demonstrative, like being on a podcast.
Right.
Okay. Right. Okay. And many of those things, actually, it would not even be useful to talk about them in public, right? Okay. Which is to say, the only people who would know what part I might have played would be myself and the few people who were engaged at that particular moment. Okay, and that's that. So it's that it's the like doing your part on a regular basis would make it possible for you not to have not to be the person holding the burden all at once.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Right.
There's that. I said the thing about balance is it's easier to balance if you're not trying to carry everything at the same time. Okay. And at different times of your life, you can have more freedom than in other times, right? You have responsibilities to family or job, or you have to care for somebody, or any of those kinds of things.
Sure.
So the risk comes actually when you are at the height of your life and you are doing many things and you don't want to say no to anything. And that's actually where the most risk comes, because then you're going to try to hold many things, and that will mean that nothing will be given as much attention as it should. So making decisions about choices are really important.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I want to go back to just this idea of not only the balance, but Kuleana and like, what are you actually responsible for? And I think this really ties into this idea of like, how does then a community come together and engage in anything? And there are a number of different ways to define community, right? But it's like one of the core pieces that I heard in some of the previous episodes of this season, in just like trying to understand what has happened to some of our communities and how do we come back and build back into this community structure, because we've seen such power come from community in times of strife. And really, it's not coming from community, it's coming from people who act in ways that then can be seen as like courageous or selfless, or understanding the Kuleana of what they have to do in order to empower communities to do some of that work as well, right? And so there's like there's a couple of pieces here that I think tie into that. Let me try this one for a second. It says, you say courage lies in the commons and falters when we go one by one. What actually holds a we together when things get hard? And how do you keep a community from fracturing under the pressures that formed it?
Okay. So when we use the word community, I think people are using it as sometimes it's like a metaphor or an identification.
But that's not what you're talking about.
That's not what I'm talking about.
You're talking about actual community.
I'm talking about actual
people
community.
You can call.
That's right, like by name, right?
Right.
Yeah. Or in my case, as an introvert, I've been in many spaces where I actually never actually go and ask people's names, but I know who they are. Okay? Because that's how I am, right? So, but if I recognize them, even to this day, we would have a relationship because we would have done work together. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, that the when community does not mean like, oh, the people for whom there is agreement about a particular issue or have a particular ideology. Okay, all right, or people who live in a geographic area, but I am not actually in relationship to any of them much. In other words, I live there. This is my community, like a zip code. Okay, but that's not what I'm talking about. Right. So I'm talking about like people that you are in relationship to, which means that they literally could live in other places, right? But you are in you are in a relationship that goes beyond whether you agree or disagree, and also beyond like your identity, right?
Right.
Beyond whether you are the same color skin, went to the same school, all of all those other kinds of things. Okay,
right.
All right. So I will acknowledge that across the Western world, in particular, America specifically, that there are many places that don't know the working meaning of that word. And so it's like a thing that needs to get rebuilt.
Or don't practice it.
Or they don't practice it.
Or, I guess.
Right? Or they've allowed modernity to, interrupt that. In other words, everybody live in their house, and in their own property, pay, mind their own business, stuff like that.
Well, and the reason why I bring that up in this question set about community is because, well, the first is that in Hawaii, we haven't lost that yet. I don't believe, especially in some of the more rural spaces that persist. It's like community actually on islands are needed in order to survive. The singular doesn't do as well, right? And I think that's a luxury now that we have here in Hawaii because as it turns out, like community is needed to move through this time and space. You've talked about it in previous episodes, and I'm wondering if you can just like come back around to that as to why you believe that the part of community that you're talking about, and feel free to talk about it in the part that we haven't lost yet, or in the part that maybe you were just referencing that is lost, as to why we need more community moving into the incoming years, or political cycles, or the years that we have ahead as people here.
I believe people long for that connection, and so this is not like it's a foreign thing and we leave it behind, and it's like the paradox of technology, which I we might cover in a future episode, a future season, right? So the paradox is that a large part of the promise of technology, especially the social media side, was for people to make connection and regain that notion of community. And the irony of it is that there's something about like funneling it through a digital space that actually isolates people more and more. Okay?
Sure. It's the phone that the staff is on right now while they're supposed to be paying attention to the camera.
Well, they'll pay attention when we get to time. We're not at time yet. But, that this part about, so that's what you're working upstream, right? You're swimming upstream because the digital and space and modernity, all things modernity,
yeah,
right? Moving into the space of isolation.
Right.
And we're swimming upstream,
right.
Okay? We're swimming upstream until people realize that, oh, you know what? Actually, the digital space and modernity, that is what is swimming upstream. That's why you're feeling more and more isolated, because it's not natural. It's natural to be in connection with people. Like, if it weren't natural, then I, as an introvert, wouldn't be able to travel and go someplace and have a momentary connection with a stranger so that we can actually be more useful to each other in that thing, which might be like, oh, I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong key, right? Or, or like that, oh, like or no, that's not on the menu today, which you might take as a transactional thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or you might make a connection with that person, and that moment, okay, will be different, right? The outcome will be different, but also the human connection will mean that you and the other person will interrupt the aspect about, oh, I am the customer, you are the, right? You're supposed to take care of me, kind of a thing, right? Sure. You interrupt the transactional aspects and you become more two people helping each other out, right? Okay. Yeah. Now, if that weren't natural, then I, as an introvert, going to the continent outside of my geographic community, talking with somebody, right, who knows nothing about the history of Hawaii, right, who probably pronounces Hawaii wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, right? Okay. We wouldn't actually be able to make a connection, but it's natural for people to make connections. Okay, we are swimming upstream when we're not. Sorry to introduce this at this particular time.
Well, I was going to say too, like for those of you in the digital space, you can DM us with more questions at the Horizon Story on Instagram. Although, Norma does do stuff in person, and maybe after that story, you want to come and visit us in person as well. So you can check out the website for more information on where Norma might be in person, either with the book and the book tour or with other offerings. I did want to, before I let you go.
Folks are not really doing that, are you?
What?
Well, letting people know where I am.
Oh, we air tagged you already.
Well, okay.
It's like a
Yeah.
Never mind the "Where's Lehu" hashtag. Where's Norma? Like, people want to know.
Well, okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, Norma. Okay. There's no air tag. I promise.
Good thing I know how to stay grounded.
Yes.
When I get all this disturbing information.
I know.
Okay.
I know.
All right.
There's one other question I wanted to ask that I think ties right into this before I let you go for the block. And it really ties into something that I think we held for a long time when we were building out OEV TV, which is that the content is important now, and it will be more important in 50 years, right? And so the question goes like this. The question came in as you frame all of this as building a thriving future for our descendants. how do you act on behalf of people you'll never meet? And what would you want someone 50 years from now to know about the choices you're making right now?
What conversation are you having with the ancestors who did their work 50 and 100 years before your time? Right? If I can have that conversation, I know what conversation my descendant will want to have with me too, right? So it's like, right? It's like if you actually build out your possibility, both with what happened before you, right?
Yeah.
And what is yet to happen, then the answer to this question is not that difficult.
Right.
Okay.
I have one follow-up though.
Yeah.
Is the weight of that question, this idea of like what someone 50 years from now would want to know about those choices, is that one of the reasons why we're sitting here in this podcast and why you're writing these books?
Because I would want descendants 50 years from now to basically say, I know why we are doing this work right now, and it is for descendants who are 50 and 100 years from now. Right. In other words, to reconnect. Like for me, like a strong purpose of this moment is, I would say, part of the reason we are in this polycrisis is because we let go of the Kuleana, of the longest arc possible, which is from ancestors to us to descendants yet to come. And if we reconnect that, irrespective of whether we are indigenous people or not, like all the people or as many people as may be possible, if we make that reconnection, then the world will shift and shift and shift and shift until they're asking the question, how the shit were they in all that mess to begin with?
Right. I'm just thinking about the fact that I said you could swear on this podcast, and you've just been lighting it up all season. And I think rightfully so. I think we're at a place where, a four-letter word every once in a while is needed to just punctuate the importance. I want to take a little break. I know we're about at time, but when we come back, I did want to talk about the institutions that we have access to now that may or may not be useful in the future, as well as some of the crises that we're in as part of rounding out this season. Is that okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Well, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Norma's podcast, The Horizon Story. Norma, I wanted to get into just a couple of things here around the crisis that we've been talking about, as well as the collapse.
Okay.
And the Chinese character was Xi.
Xi, yes.
Thank you. And it is described as not only crisis, but opportunity. Okay,
so there are two characters in the word crisis. Okay, Wu Ji, and the second half of that character. It's the character is made of two parts.
Okay.
That second part, Ji, is the part that is the interval in which change is possible.
Okay.
So, which is to say, they said that in crisis, there is this interval. Okay.
Got it.
Okay. All right.
So the question that came in was, in this moment of crisis, everything can feel urgent and worth trying. How do you tell the difference between genuinely stepping into that opening and just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks?
Okay. So there's actually a way in which if you step into the opening and you keep going, in other words, if you step into the opening and you hesitate, then nothing will stick. Okay? But you step into the opening and you begin to feel like there's some momentum to what it is you're doing, then you know you're going with the stream. basically, okay? You're going with the stream, and even though it may be difficult, that you will start to make some progress towards your purpose.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. That's really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think this also centers around this idea of some of the institutions that have held up this idea that we need to change within structure rather than see these structures collapse around us. And so there's a question here that came in to hopefully start a conversation around systems change. Many of us were trained to believe that holding institutions accountable was the path to justice. So hearing you call system change the slower and more perilous route was interesting. Where does that leave people who spent careers in policy and advocacy? And what is the new muscle you're describing as we move from advocacy into governance? This is like one of the key things I think that
Yes.
We are asking people to do in different settings in Hawaii.
Right.
And I'm wondering if you can talk about it in the broader scope outside of Hawaii, but also what should we be doing here?
So holding anyone accountable shouldn't just be a matter of judgment and critique. We have to move beyond that particular stage. If accountability does not also include specific things that would be able to be done, by able I don't mean easy to be done, right? But that have some bearing in actual ways that something can be changed. And you're going to stand side by side with that institution, right? Okay.
Yeah.
To get that implemented.
Yeah.
Right. And so that there is mutual accountability, not accountability in one direction. Okay. That is still a pathway for the work that needs to happen right now. But if you hold that as the exclusive path that you're using, it's going to be a slow and hard road. Okay? But at minimum, if you are into systems change work, you have to shift from just truth to power. Okay?
Right.
All right? And actually be a problem solver, not only someone who puts a spotlight on the problems.
Yeah, pointing out the problem.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's like one. I think it's easier to point out the problem. Like,
yes,
we get in the habit of pointing out problems every day.
Right.
The solving for the problem, having the problem and the answer seems a lot more complicated in the time space we're in right now.
Yes, I also think that the more versed you are in how all of that works together, and I'm not talking how the system works, but the problem that you are pointing out,
yeah,
and the more that you know about the community that it impacts, then we are in the time when you have to ask the question on a side-by-side basis. Not only what can the system do, but what can be done, okay,
right,
in multiple ways that would alleviate, that would mitigate, that would even like go beyond the problem and moving towards some opportunity.
I mean, you're talking about agency.
I'm talking about agency, and I'm talking about sweat.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like not only you have the power, but you actually are implementing into it. Implementing.
It's one of those words.
It's one of those words.
Yeah. You know, and maybe I can, I don't know that I necessarily agree with this next question, but I'm going to read it anyway because it's here on the paper. Someone listening might say collapse is too strong. I happen to think we're in a pretty good case for collapse right now, but the rest of the question is important, that they're saying like things are hard but holding, and this framing risks becoming self-fulfilling. What do you say to the person who thinks naming collapse helps bring it on? And then the follow-up is, what can we look for as signs that collapse is happening?
Okay, so can we take that last question first, the last part first?
What can we look for as signs that collapse is happening?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so when multiple things that you counted on can no longer be counted on, that would be a sign. Okay? Right. And yeah, go ahead.
It's a pretty short statement, but
yes,
powerful nonetheless.
Yeah, I know very few people who can't say that that is the case for them.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Medicare, SNAP.
Medicare, SNAP.
Home education dollars.
All right. At the beginning of last year, people didn't know how it is that they were going to sign up for Social Security without appearing at the building in person. Remember that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And all over the country, our seniors, right, younger than I am, were lining up with a lot of fear, right, in the middle of winter, essentially.
And this is something bedrock to this country, Social Security.
It has been for some time, right?
Yeah.
It has been for some time, right? And the notion that, that, for example, they would have to show up and they would have to prove that they are a citizen of this country in order to get the Social Security. And they would have to do that by turning in very specific paperwork that they may or may not have seen in their entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Okay. And now they would have to go and hunt it down and find it and do all of these steps and all of these other types of things. And that by doing that all over the country, they would actually bring the entire system almost to a halt. Right? There would be, people would be on the line, on the phone for hours, holding on the line. Okay. If that's not a sign of systems collapse, I don't know. I don't know what other proof you need.
Well, so I think I'm in agreement with you. I think there's like lots of data. I mean, it's pretty much in every day's news feed as to different parts of the apparatus that we thought was uncollapsible collapsing.
Right.
I think the second half of that is like, well, what do we do?
Uh-huh.
And to be fair, I think you've talked a lot about like what are some of the small ways that community can come together, and what are the different places at which there is an intersection where we can choose agency and sweat equity and do some work towards building relationships that allow us to bridge some of the gaps that now persist. And I would offer, I think in one of the previous episodes, I mentioned that, that in the case of Hawaii, we were already doing those things.
Yes, very much.
And we have already been utilizing community and the ways in which community sticks together in Hawaii to hang on, whether it was during COVID, whether it was after the Lahaina fires, whether it's like day in and day out to make, ends meet. The question is like, what happens when that's not enough? What happens when people are contemplating leaving this place because there's just not enough resource to glue everything together in the ways at which we can pay for food and rent and electricity in the same month at the same time?
Well, I would say two things. And this isn't only about Hawaii, so it's about other places as well, right? So many of the things that we do on an informal basis all the time. By the way, if you're not doing that, then you at least have to get to that level, okay? Right? Because there are places where this informal way in which we are in relationship to each other does not exist. So places where that is, you have to get to that level. In places where that already exists, like in Hawaii, we do have to contemplate the next level. And what I mean by the next level is we're doing it informally, some of those things we have to contemplate how it is that we could build more structure and process around it. And I don't say those words lightly, right? Because I'm not a process person. I'm not a structure person, right? Okay. But there's that part about just enough process, just enough structure.
Right.
So it's not just about, like 5 of us being stretched really thin, trying to help each other out. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like build more robustness. And part of the way you build more robustness is that you begin to actually put more formal linkages between mini communities. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you do that. And then what that does is it begins to form a non-capital economy. That's what it begins to do.
Right.
Okay? And in the non-capital economy, part of people's useful work is usefully in service of each other, not just for an employer or like that.
Or the capitalistic structure at which holds us at this moment.
The entire globe, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I think that's really important. I mean, I think growing up in a small town, like the non-dollar transactions weren't actually transactions. They were community caring for each other. And, to this day, we still live in this small community out in the country. And, so much of what is enjoyable about that are those kinds of connections that folks lean in to help each other in different ways. And that's something that I hope that we can get back to on a larger scale, because that's really, I think, that's one of the definitions of aloha, like how
that's
people treat each other, right? And also too that those are the inspiring bits, how you know that there's actual relationship.
By the way, I mourn too when people feel that they have to leave and it's very difficult to come back. Sometimes it happens.
Yeah.
Mostly it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
A thing that I hear all the time when I'm on the continent and I meet people who are not here is that they fall into 2 categories. People who miss Hawaii because the way that they live away from Hawaii is not anything like Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are people who miss Hawaii and who've carried how they live in Hawaii to the places that they live.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And guess who is thriving better?
Yeah.
Right? And because of that, I can say directly to people who are not of this place that, so for most of the people who are listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube, right, that you don't have to be from Hawaii to have that kind of relationship. You don't have to be from here. This is not an exotic story, right? That is special to Hawaii that you cannot carry with you.
Yeah, I think it's much more simple and complex than that. In that these are places and spaces in Hawaii where you can't just go off into the desert and build one more community. Mm-hmm. That if there's a disagreement, that here we are bound by shores and bound by a specific amount of space, and that we have had to not only get along in different ways and have hard conversations in different ways, but also rely on each other when the ships stop coming.
That's right.
It was one of the big things that came out of COVID was like, nobody's coming to save us. We have to figure out how to save ourselves, right? And so the values that come with that are really important for us to, that will buoy us in times of need.
I mean, I think these are not only values, but skills that we have that we can share with other peoples. Because as it turns out, right, you can't be anywhere on the globe and actually really be separate from anybody else. We've reached that point.
We try hard, though.
Well, we try hard.
We try hard.
We try hard. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, we're about at time for this segment of the podcast, and I want to just tease forward to the next one. Like there's just this amazing amount of poetry that you read in your books. And so I wanted to share with the viewers some poetry, if it's okay.
Yeah, I understand you're going to read it. Right?
I'm going to read it.
Okay, thank you. I'm
We'll
looking
be right
forward
back.
to it.
Welcome back, everybody, to Norma's podcast, The Horizon Story. Norma, one of the things that I thought we were going to do more of with this podcast that we actually haven't gotten to just yet, but it's on my list, is to dive into some of the content in the books. And I know that like the broader concepts and the interchange that happens on some of those concepts is actually born from the books and some of your teachings.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so it's not to say that we haven't touched upon the teachings in the books, but I think there's still a lot of important work that comes out of these two books, Who Are Becoming Matters and When Nothing Works. But I gotta say, like, one of the really pleasant surprises for me and I was gonna say like in reading the books, but actually because I got to be the line producer for the audiobooks, the pleasant surprises was when you read the poems back. Because the cadence and the intonation and just the structure of how you wrote the poem really comes true when you read it back. And so for those of you who haven't had the opportunity yet to listen to the audiobooks, they're really powerful because it's like it's not only your own words, but it's in your own voice. And it's a really powerful thing.
Thank you.
Especially with the poems. And I'm wondering, there's a poem I want to share with you.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if you'll recognize it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And
You're
so
going to read it from your digital device.
I'm going to read it from my digital device.
Okay.
Okay. And it actually, it doesn't have a title. It was just called Poem.
Okay.
As it turns out.
Okay.
And it goes like this. Fading surf and muggy sunshine show. FIGHT. Crossing 22 mines and one warm bench with animal excitement for tossing the pigskin on grassy goop by several thousand pep-rallied ideas, served by hot dogs in pinstripe uniforms and spirited by deaf and desperate drummers and bugle beginners booming Sweet Caroline, notwithstanding plastic smiles, a la laryngitis in matching bikini bottoms, coaxing boogiers boogieing through the 2 touchdowns and 4 fumbles, brilliantly executed by future athletic scholarships in baby blue bloomers for mom and dad and the lighthouse on the hill. Imua. Do you recognize that?
I'm just going to say vaguely.
So I think this was written right around the mid-1970s by none other than Norma Wong in high school.
Where did you find it?
This is, well, I don't want to give it away, but our favorite archivist found some of your writing as well as some of your pictures in high school.
Oh my gosh.
And
okay, you signed an NDA.
I did. And I'm not going to show the picture. Okay. And I've been holding this for some time, actually. Wow. But I did want to read the poem as a nod towards this poetry in the book being something that has been a long time in the making. And so thank you for continuing your practice with poetry as well.
From the lighthouse on the hill.
From the lighthouse on the hill. Well, this should be the name of the next poem, maybe.
Maybe the next poem. But oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the memory.
Yeah. And thank you for all the hard work and for just this exciting journey that we are on. I know it has not always been the most calming experience to be in front of this audience through these cameras. But it's certainly worthwhile for those of us who are paying attention. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the trust.
Yep. Right. Thank you for the trust.
Yeah. And Imua.
Imua. Aloha.
The Horizon Story podcast is produced by Bryson Ho and Sarah Demarest de Rivera. Hosted and written by me, Norma Wong. Executive producer, Naalehu Anthony. Featuring Ariel Jacobson. For Collective Acceleration, Kelly Miller. For OEV TV, Ken Sato, Wesley Kealoha, Courtney Leong, Jeff Lee, and Ivy Lagadlagad. For Pa'akai Communications, Jamila Silver, Diana Han, Pearl Tule, Christine Matsuda. Hair and Makeup by Melody Levy. Mahalo to Kalihi, the land of my birth, ancestors, teachers, collaborators, and friends. Rosie Abraham for the support, and Scott Nine and Taj James for the encouragement. The Horizon Story is brought to you by OEV TV. Copyright by Collective Acceleration. Follow us on social at The Horizon Story. Questions to hello@thehorizonstory.com. Visit us where you find your favorite podcast or at thehorizonstory.com.